That guy's brain is a bag full of cats. You could smell crazy on him.
Have care how you speak. Loki is beyond reason, but he is of Asgard. And he is my brother.
He killed 80 people in 2 days.
He's adopted.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. And today I'm going to review one of the biggest debuts of January 2020, Thor. There are a couple of big debuts this month. We got Star Wars #1, which I will review with Skip and Tosh tomorrow, as well as new Superman material from Robert Venditti and Superman Giant that I'm also going to try and review on Sunday. But I want to talk about Donny Cates Thor. This follows Jason Aaron's 7-year run with the character. It was a very profitable, a very successful run for Jason Aaron. He did a lot of things with the character that people love, that people like a lot. Of course, it culminated with the line-wide event, War of the Realms. I wasn't overly impressed with that event. I thought that should have been the culmination of his Thor series in Thor. I think they probably stretched the story too far, did too many tie-ins, and really watered down the impact of what Jason Aaron was building up to for like 5 to 7 years and finally got to put on paper. So I do think they did him a disservice, but Jason Aaron's Thor run is over. Now Donny Cates, Marvel's Wonderkin, is taking over. He just completed his 12-issue run on Guardians of the Galaxy and Silver Surfer Black in 2019. Of course, he's still writing Venom right now. Probably my third favorite ongoing Marvel series at the moment. I would say Donny Cates is the second best writer at Marvel. I know a lot of people think he's #1. I personally think Chip Zdarsky is just a bit better with his story craft at the moment, but they're both excellent. Marvel Comics is in very good hands with Donny Cates and Chip Zdarsky as their 1 and 2. Of course, some would argue it's Jonathan Hickman, but he's really only working in that X-Men universe whereas Chip and Donny are working on multiple different characters, multiple different settings. As we've come to expect from Donny Cates on Marvel, this does tie together with some of his other stories, notably Silver Surfer Black. So that's pretty exciting. You know, if you've been paying attention and reading the Donnyverse and all of his Marvel cosmic work, starting with Thor, got Thor on the mind. Thanos wins. I think you're going to be very happy. It definitely ties into those very well. On art, we have German artist Nic Klein, who I personally think is a very underrated artist, and this is a good opportunity for him to really break out in the comic industry, and I think he's going to knock it out of the park. Now, most of Thor #1 is recalibrating the characters and setting for Cates' new direction of the series. A lot of the beginning of the issue is recapping the fallout from War of the Realms, so he can take Thor in his new direction. I highly recommend Thor #1. It's an exciting new take on the character, and I think people are going to love it. Artist Nic Klein is a veteran of Norse-based comic themes and settings and characters. He's done a lot of work with these settings in European-based comic series. The first thing that you will notice, he and Donnie make this new Thor series their own. The setting and character designs are very unique to what they were doing. Most notably, they changed up the throne for the new All-Father Thor himself. It's no longer a giant throne room. It's more in line with old Norse mythology, and it's made of steel and wood, and it's sitting in front of the life tree. One of the big things I noticed from Nic Klein in this comic issue are great facial expressions, most notably Loki, and a surprise appearance from Galactus. I wasn't expecting the World Eater to be in this comic. I hadn't read any of the previews, so if that was out before, I was unaware. Nick has a nice traditional comic style. He has a really good use of hatching and line weight. It adds great depth to the character and settings and the paneling, and I like the aesthetics that he brings to this new Thor series. Colorist Matt Wilson brings a subdued color palette that doesn't overpower Klein's wonderful pencils and inks that he uses throughout the comic book. I think the art in Thor #1 is very good, and I rate it 4 out of 5. As far as characterization goes, when we meet Thor, he is weary after the War of the Realms and his ascension to All-Father. He's wearing a heavy crown. You can see the weight of everything that's happened and all the death and destruction, and the loss of his father are weighing heavily on him as he's getting ready to address Asgard. It is hinted at in this comic that he has some new powers now that he's All-Father, but I think that's going to be explored much more in depth further along in the story. Most of the character interactions, especially in the first half of the comic, are used for exposition following the War of the Realms. So we know Lady Sif is now responsible for the Bifrost. Loki is a king himself and Lord of the Frost Giants. I really enjoyed the brief interaction between Thor and Loki. And I like the characterization of Loki. He comes off as way more slimy and way less charismatic and likable than his recent portrayals, most notably in the MCU, which then transitioned in the Marvel Universe and made him a much more likable character. Here, he is not likable. You can see he's very distant from his brother, and his brother does not trust him. And why would he after years of scheming and screwing his family over? Things pick up in the second half in the comic when the World Eater himself, Galactus, falls to Asgard. Of course, initially, Thor thinks that he's there to take over the world or consume it, so he goes to meet him on the battlefield, and we learn that he's looking for help. When you see Galactus, he's physically beaten. There's something wrong with him, and he warns about the coming of the Star Plague. He also calls it the Great Black Winter, and that is what has put Galactus in such a dire predicament. The state Galactus is in when he arrives makes the threat seem very imposing. It's almost killed Galactus and certainly presents a threat to all the realms of the kingdom. Also of note, when Galactus falls to Asgard, he brings with him a very terrible storm that brings death and destruction to Asgard. Lots of Asgardians fall, so Thor needs to get to the bottom of this and save his kingdom. And that basically sets the plot in motion. There isn't a lot of plot in this comic book. Like I said, there's a lot of character exposition for new readers that are jumping on Thor #1. It's handled very well. I do like it, but the plot itself is a bit thin. Galactus has fallen to Asgard. The Star Plague, the Black Winter are coming, and Thor has to save his people. To do this, he gathers the heralds of Galactus to gather information and find out what the threat is. Finally, Norrin arrives, the Silver Surfer, and he has a lot more information about what's happening and drops a couple of more surprises that were very, very cool. Enjoyed his appearance a lot. He brings a lot to the table. This ties together a lot of the past Donny Cates stories, including Silver Surfer Black. And this sets Thor, Galactus, and his heralds on a quest to defeat the Black Winter before it arrives and destroys the kingdoms. There isn't a ton of plot in this issue, but what is here is really effective. It's spelled out and executed very wonderfully. I rate it 3.5 out of 5. There is one final surprise in the last few pages. Thor goes to meet Galactus and let him know he's joining him on a quest and that they're going to take out the Black Winter. When Galactus reveals a secret, and it appears that he's going to kill the God of Thunder. In fact, he rechristens him the Herald of Thunder, restoring his missing arm and eye. He now is sporting the new look from the Carver art. I definitely like the way that they brought the new look into the comic book. I didn't really get into this too much, but the dialogue is extremely crisp and well executed throughout. Just what you would expect from a Donny Cates comic book. That's one of his real strengths is dialogue. He definitely lays down some excellent Thor dialogue in this issue. The characterization overall is the strength of the issue, and I rate it 4.5 out of 5. While I don't think this is as good as maybe the first issue of Venom or Guardians of the Galaxy, or maybe even Silver Surfer Black, but Donny Cates set the bar very high on debut issues. Thor #1 is very successful for a debut comic. It sets the table for his take on the character and settings, and really puts things in motion that you can see that he's moving towards. Donny Cates presents a lot of information in a short amount of time in this comic book, but it's very digestible. It's very easy to follow along. If you didn't read War of the Realms, you don't need to. You don't need to go back and check that out. He spells everything out very well. It's easy to follow, and it's a fast-paced read. This is all tying into Donny Cates' past cosmic work, with Thanos, Guardians of the Galaxy, Silver Surfer, Cosmic Ghost Rider, all that stuff, and I definitely expect to see Null in the somewhat near future. New readers are going to like this comic. They're going to like this take on Thor. It's a fun book that's definitely worth your time. And I just want to point out, it was very important that he didn't change everything about Aaron's run. Yes, this is a status quo change, but Aaron's 7-year run with the character were beloved. A lot of people like that. So it was important that he didn't scrap everything while taking the series in a distinctly new direction. I rate Thor #1, 4 out of 5 overall. I highly recommend this comic. Thor readers are going to like this. Donny Cates fans are going to like this. I think Marvel fans in general will enjoy this comic book, and you should definitely go to your LCS and pick up a copy if you haven't already. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.